Good morning, everybody. Nope. No applause. Good morning, everybody. It sounds like we probably had a good amount of fun at the happy hour last night. That's good. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope everybody did enjoy the happy hour. We covered a lot of ground yesterday, so we certainly earned it. One thing about being a digital Sherlock, and if you ask anybody on the DFRLab team, they'll roll their eyes when I say this, but A, it's not a crime to be good to yourself. We're going to talk about some real crimes today, and it's not a crime to be good to yourself. But also, there's no reason that being a digital Sherlock can't be fun. A few housekeeping notes. Also, Wi-Fi. If you haven't gotten on the Wi-Fi, the network is 360 OS. If you haven't figured that out by now, I have a lot of questions for you. The password is London 2019, all lowercase. If you haven't downloaded the app, I'm going to keep telling you to download the app. You can answer or ask questions, all of these things, connect specifically using business cards. The whole point of this conference is for you to connect with each other and listen to some interesting things up here, but connect with each other. If you haven't visited the Facebook activation upstairs, go check it out. Very cool Oculus setup up there. But a few things before we get started, just to remember. Yesterday, we framed the collective challenge of disinformation. If we're going to do something about this challenge, it's going to involve everybody in the room. And in this room, we have representatives from government and media and tech and civil society and citizens, and it's going to take everybody. Yesterday, we went through what is open source. We went through the ethics of open source and answering the questions of can we, should we, given the two trends that we're facing of humans have more access to information than any point in history. Humans are also more connected than any point in history. And those two things are pretty good things. They've created more opportunity than challenges, but they have created a number of negative externalities that we need to deal with, which is why we're here today. Today, we're going to dive into the immediacy of threats exacerbated by disinformation. But a few things to remember before we dive into that that we touched in yesterday as we were beginning. When we're talking about the collective challenge of disinformation, we need to remember that we agree in free and open societies on more than we disagree on. And that goes directly to the point of we have serious tensions within the group, but we need to remember that, we agree on more than we disagree on. Second, in free and open societies, we need to not be afraid of our own shadows. We need to not be afraid to engage on this issue. We need to not be afraid to have the hard conversations. For me, the key point yesterday was when we're talking about disinformation in elections, and one of the only things that we're talking about is foreign influence. It turns out that there's a lot of disinformation that we do to ourselves in our own countries, and that's something that we need to talk about. That's a lot harder to talk about, but it's something that we can't be afraid of. And I would also say, before we get started, we can't fall into what I would call the disinformation trap, which is when we're responding to disinformation, we can't accept the premise of those who would spread it. And for us at the DFRLab, that means that we use open source. And the whole point of open source research is that we don't want to assume our own credibility, right? We don't want to say, okay, well, we're covering elections in Brazil, and we're a foreign policy think tank that is located in Washington, D.C., so you should totally trust us because we're brilliant. The whole point is to not do that. The whole point is to say, don't trust us, look at all of our work, look at all of our sources, and then decide for yourself. So with open source, we want to upgrade as much objective information and downgrade as much blatant manipulation or lies or disinformation, misinformation. And so while we're responding to it, I want you to think about in your own work how we cannot fall into the disinformation trap, how we can get out of accepting the premise. So when somebody says something that is blatantly untrue, we don't respond and say, okay, well, that's not true, and here's why. Because once you've done that, you've already lost, right? You've already accepted in some level the fact that what they're saying should be responded to. And so how do you not get into a sustained back and forth? And in some of these situations, it's a matter of life and death. And so with that, I am extremely excited to invite Andy Carvin back up to the stage, who will invite a very, very special guest to talk to us. Join me in welcoming Andy Carvin back to the stage.